Chapter 3, Supply and Demand. In this video, we're going to talk about supply and demand together in equilibrium, and then talk about how we can shift the graph and what the outcomes are. So when you're shifting a graph or when you're looking at a supply and demand question, you first need to decide whether the event given in the question is one of the shifters of supply or a shifter of demand. Remember, you should go back to your demand and supply shifters and memorize them. If it is a change in the price of the actual market the question is asking you to look at, remember, price changes it along the line, which will change your quantity supplied and quantity demanded. Any other type of event or the price of a similar or related market will shift the entire demand or supply line. Once you've figured out if it is a shifter of supply or demand, you need to decide in which direction it would shift. Does that line move to the right, which is an increase, or to the left, which is a decrease? Now, you're going to shift your line. Ideally, you'd draw your new line in a new color, and you're going to label it. So if it's, let's say, an increase in demand, you would shift a demand line to the right, and that would now be called demand 2. And then once you're done, you will have a new equilibrium price and quantity. And those are the effects of your shift in demand or supply. So here's an example. I put a title on the market here. It's a market for hybrid cars. I've drawn out both axes, the vertical axis labeled P for price, horizontal axis labeled Q for quantity. So this is going to be the price of the hybrid cars and quantity of hybrid cars both bought and sold. I'm going to add in a demand line. This is my first demand line, and this is my first supply line. And I'm going to label my equilibrium as well. Now, I don't have numbers and prices on this particular graph, so I'm just going to use price 1 and quantity 1. And that is the current equilibrium. Now, let's say that the question tells us that there's been an increase in the price of gasoline. If gas prices go up, is that going to affect the demand line, meaning the behavior of buyers, or the supply line, which is the behavior of sellers? Hopefully you picked the correct one. This is going to affect the behavior of buyers. So this is going to be a demand shift. Now, is this going to cause people to buy more hybrid cars or less hybrid cars? So you have to decide in step 2 whether to shift that demand line to the right for an increase or to the left for a decrease. If gas prices are going up, hopefully you realize that that is going to cause some people to want to not pay the price of gasoline and thus purchase a hybrid car. So that's going to increase the demand line. So we're going to shift demand. Here I drew demand in a different color to make it easy to see, and I labeled it demand 2. My new equilibrium is now at price 2 and quantity 2. So the effect of an increase in demand was that the price went up in the marketplace and the quantity bought and sold also went up. Here's a different example. So if we're still in the market for hybrid cars, this time it tells us that there's a new technology that reduces the cost of producing hybrid cars. So does that affect the supply or the demand? Hopefully you said supply. Supply is about producing cars. So this is going to be a supply shifter. If the technology is lowering cost or lowers the cost of producing cars, is that going to increase or decrease the supply of hybrids? Hopefully you guessed right that if the new technology is going to make it cheaper to produce, then the supply would shift to the right, which is an increase in supply. So we're going to shift supply to the right. I'm going to label that supply 2. And now my new price is price 2 and new quantity, quantity 2. The effect in this market from an increase in supply is that the price of hybrids went down and the quantity bought and sold went up.